and she kind of just took me under her wing. And it seemed like everywhere I would go, I would meet these people. Even if I was at the craziest places, I would meet these people that just saw something in me, like, and would tell me like, hey, Audrie, you can go to school. You can do this. You can do that. And kind of push me to do the right thing. And so finally, I felt like I kept hearing it from so many people that I actually started believing it. And I was like, wow, like maybe this isn't my life. Like maybe I'm not going to be stuck like on this street for the rest of my life.
Welcome to the My SGV podcast. Our mission is to capture and share the stories of the people of the San Gabriel Valley. We believe our diversity is what makes the SGV great. And no matter where you're from in the San Gabriel Valley, you will feel welcome.
All right, SGVers, welcome back to another episode of the My SGV podcast. Thank you for tuning in. If you're a regular listener, we appreciate you spending this time with us. And if you are new to the show, welcome. We hope you enjoy this time where we bring you a guest from right here in the San Gabriel Valley. Well, Scott, we were discussing our pregame, and you said that homeless it sort of triggers something in you. Is there?
Doesn't necessarily trigger something just in me, but I think it's a topic of great interest nationwide and local. So there's a bus stop right outside the house where my daughter is staying in Pasadena right now, and I took a walk with her the other morning. And as we passed it, I've been walking that walk for the last several weeks. And there's one person who lives there. As I was walking with my daughter, and we approached the bus stop, and she saw the person living there, and she sort of reacted, sort of jumped back, kind of, not expecting to see somebody there. And I said, it's okay. I've seen him for the last several weeks. He lives there. Somehow, as if that was okay, that he lived there, she shouldn't be afraid or taken aback or shocked. But this is what we've become, I think, used to now, is seeing people in places we didn't used to see them living, and somehow adapting to that.
Sure. Yeah, and homeless is it's an unusual term because it means a lot of different things, I think, to different people. My sister was homeless for some time. I remember I learned she was living in Los Angeles somewhere. It was some time before she got Section 8 housing, but I mean, homeless could even mean going from home to home, depending on the generosity or maybe other people taking advantage of you to give you housing, for a night or a week or whatever. So I think it means different things to different people.
I saw a new term. I don't know how this term strikes people, but it was, I think, a new way of describing it, unhoused. Yeah. And so that might be the more common way of describing it going forward. I saw that for the first time a couple of weeks ago.
The only other conversations I've had around homeless were with Joe, my former client who worked Skid Row for most of his time on the force. And he would describe just indescribable scenarios, situations, and I can't even imagine people living like that. It's just unreal. And this is just, here in Los Angeles. But anyway, it's a pretty heavy introduction into our show, but it's a topic well worth discussing. But before we get into such a heavy topic, don't forget to check out San Gabriel Valley Now. Carlos and his team do a great job with their information, news, announcements, events, everything about the San Gabriel Valley. You can find them on Instagram, sgv.now, and read their SGV Now magazine on their website, sgvnow.com. Well, our guests often come from a variety of sources, and this one is a referral from a previous guest, Cameron. Her name is Audrie Gordon. She does community outreach, and she's a substance abuse counselor and future MSW. Audrie, welcome to the show.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you for coming on. So, Audrie, what is your connection to the San Gabriel Valley?
So I was born at Huntington Memorial in Pasadena.
Oh, nice.
And I was raised my entire life in South San Gabriel, which is like a little unincorporated area of Rosemead, almost kind of on the border of like Montebello, Monterey Park. We're just a little pocket there off the 60 freeway. So I lived there my whole life till I was about 22.
And are you still in the San Gabriel Valley
I
now?
am now. So now I'm in the San Gabriel Valley in a different unincorporated area, which is really different from the surrounding area. It's North Whittier / Avocado Heights.
Oh, yeah.
So it's kind of like we're surrounded by like equestrian and agriculture, and it's a pretty neat area. And yeah, it's North Whittier, but and we share a zip code with Whittier, but we're basically like Bassett, Avocado Heights, La Puente.
Interesting. Okay. So you grew up in the San Gabriel Valley.
I did.
Yeah. What was life like for you growing up that time?
Well, it was crazy. So my family's been here since pretty much like the 60s. My mom moved here, I want to say when she was like in her teens. My grandparents moved from Boyle Heights. And my grandfather was actually like a really, really interesting person and pretty known in the San Gabriel Valley. He was kind of like a staple at the Old Beaches Market on Garvey. And everybody back then knew him as Indian Tony. Now it's kind of like, and the funny thing is that we're not like Native American, that he was from Mexico, but we always thought he was. And he was he was into horses. So they moved out this way because he needed, some more space to do what he liked to do, after World War II, he was a Marine. So they moved out here, and my mom grew up here. She really never lived anywhere else but that little house in South San Gabriel. And pretty much our family followed, so our street became very much like all family, including like a mutual, like another cousin of mine and Cameron's. It was neat. We all lived on the same street. We did a lot of things together, and it was just super tight-knit. My mom actually married my dad. He's not from California. He's from South Carolina. And so she kind of brought him into the community. And it was interesting because, predominantly back then it was Hispanic, second generation Mexican American. My dad was super white from South Carolina. And so we kind of, were both and kind of struggled a little bit to kind of find who we were in our place. It was me and my two brothers. And so it was interesting growing up. We went to all the local schools. I went there to Potrero Heights Elementary, and it was a wild time. The 80s and the 90s, totally different than right now. There was a lot of running around and playing baseball hours of the night, didn't have a curfew, and the older kids kind of raised us.
Can you talk about your struggles? You said being of mixed background.
I can. I feel like it was just hard finding that identity. Like we were almost like kind of like too white to like be kind of like part of like, our Mexican American cousins, and we would kind of get teased a little. Nothing serious, all in love. And then we were, like too Mexican to fit in with, our family from South Carolina. And I mean, we didn't grow up with them. I really didn't get to know them until recently. But we kind of always felt in the middle and just struggling with that identity, like we had a dad that dropped us off at school listening to country music and my mom was like super like, kind of hippie-ish, kind of, just part of that, like that movement, like in Boyle Heights. It was just really, really interesting. So I left us feeling, I guess, kind of searching for our own identity within all that. And trying to see where we fit in, not only with our family, but with our friends, and I think there was like maybe like 3 or 4 other families that we grew up kind of like that had that same like mixture. They were like half Mexican American, half like white. And I feel like we all kind of had the same struggle, like maybe during elementary school, just finding our place.
I can see that this is a different kind of mixed blood situation than we normally confront, but I'm trying to figure out why. Is it because you had a white father growing up in a Hispanic neighborhood? Does that not usually happen?
I think it was a little rare, like where we were at, and I think that it was family too. Like, he came into a very like Mexican American strong culture family, and he, you know, I think he had to find his place within the family as well. There were some things I think that he didn't understand culturally, you know. I think our family was unique in that, even like belief wise and, you know, religion wise. My family was very, when my great grandparents came here, they converted to like Christianity, like Pentecostal almost, like during that whole movement in Boyle Heights. So my dad kind of had to even fit into that. And I mean, everything worked out. I think for us, I think he found his place in our family, and, you know, everybody learned how to kind of just accept each other and kind of learn about each other's ways of growing up and culture and kind of just doing for us what we needed. But it was still like a topic of conversation and amongst the cousins, you know, like it was just interesting. And I think growing up in the neighborhood, I don't want to say it came up too, but we could feel the difference. Like, you know, there was just things like I didn't grow up speaking Spanish. A lot of my friends grew up speaking Spanish. We didn't, because my dad didn't understand it. And so my mom eventually stopped using it and didn't know how to speak it anymore. So I think growing up, there was always that like desire to like to have our culture, you know, and then we didn't. And, you know, just kind of, I think there was that confusion. I think it was more internal. I don't think it was more like external. I don't think we were like being made fun of or like totally excluded. It was more of like an internal struggle. Like, what do I resonate with? Like what, you know, where do I kind of belong, you know?
Does your family still live there?
Yeah. So my grandparents have passed away. My grandma actually lived till she was 102, and she passed in 2015. And my aunt lives in her house now with her cousin. I met with my cousin, and that's also interesting. So my cousin is also like a Rosemead staple. Everybody knows him. He's very like high needs. He has special needs, and cerebral palsy, autism, epilepsy. And so we've all as a family just kind of stuck around the area to like kind of just be there for him and my aunt and my cousin, his older sister. And so we never thought about leaving. So my mom has a house away from where she grew up, and my parents actually recently moved to San Dimas to retire, like in a mobile home community. And my little brother actually lives in that house now with his family. So, and then we actually moved to North Whittier, which it seems really far away from me because I've never been out of like South San Gabriel besides the times when I was like in my early 20s and kind of floating around, like, you know, renting different apartments like in Boyle Heights and in Whittier and then La Puente. But that was always home to me. So having like a home where I'm raising all my kids and like, they're, you know, it's been an adjustment, but I still go over there every day and kind of.
You go to your old neighborhood every day?
Oh yeah, and I help my aunt out, and my kids are always there.
Is it a higher socioeconomic level where you are now?
I guess it is, and I think that it's a weird area. It's like a little pocket in North Whittier that's like we're by a country club, and you know the houses are tract homes, and they're a little bit larger than the ones like in South San Gabriel. Because the ones in South San Gabriel, like if you're familiar with that area, they're very small, like 2-bedroom homes, but they're really unique. Like it almost is kind of like City Terrace in East LA because it's all hills, and there's these little houses, but they're on these huge lots. And for a long time, I think South San Gabriel has kind of just remained like out of that Rosemead pocket. So we haven't really like grown the way Rosemead has. So it's really interesting. And I never like saw us as like middle class or lower middle class, but I guess now, you know, kind of, you know, I guess we were considered like the lower middle class. And I guess where I'm at now is considered like the middle class. I mean, it's pretty much how I see it. It's very, very quiet, and everybody sticks to themselves. And then South San Gabriel is very much community still, and you go and families all out there, and you know neighbors are talking, and parties on 4th of July, and you know it gets a little wild still. So
I'm looking on a map here, like around like Hill Drive, Arland Avenue, Abacan Avenue.
Yeah, I grew up on Lawrence Avenue.
Which you have on your shirt
I do.
here.
I was going to ask you about that, yeah.
So I have a friend who also grew up in Rosemead, and he like started this clothing brand called the 88 Steps, which we'll talk about that later because that's one of like my favorite places in the San Gabriel Valley. But he started like a whole clothing brand kind of representing like this awesome place in the San Gabriel Valley. And so I like to, support him and buy clothes from his clothing brand. And, we have a lot of we support the same like youth sports organizations, and we've become friends. Our kids are close. So that's that shirt.
Okay.
He kind of makes them custom made. If you're from Rosemead and you want a shirt, then he'll put the street sign on it. And then it's like, almost everybody in Rosemead has one.
Well, Audrie, so you mentioned staying up, playing baseball, no curfew, that type of stuff. Were you a latchkey kid?
I wasn't, because we had all my grandparents.
Oh, that's right.
So there was that dynamic. My grandparents lived a house away, and then my dad's mom eventually moved over here as well. So she was kind of in and out throughout the day. But we were just wild. My parents, if it wasn't for my grandparents being around, obviously we would have been latchkey kids, because my parents were working all the time, from 5, 6 in the morning till
What kind of
6.
work did they do?
So my dad was a lineman for Pacific Bell, and then he actually started his own business and did when like the security cameras and stuff first started coming out. And then he ended his career working for ADT. And then my mom's always been a bookkeeper. So she's mostly like worked in like throughout the community. Don Bosco High School for a long time, she was their bookkeeper, and she's kind of just always done that for either mortgage companies, or right now she's actually at a nonprofit in Pomona, a boys and girls family center.
So that area of South San Gabriel, because I'm from this area, I know or recognize as being can have areas where it's kind of tough.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes, extremely. Growing up, we lived on a big party street, and I think what started off as like partying became addiction. And like, as I got older, I could see how it affected like all the generations. And not only that, but you kind of also had like the gang presence there, and that kind of went hand in hand. I remember our elementary school being shut down for some time, maybe I want to say like in the 4th grade, because people were going to Potrero Heights Park, playing handball, playing basketball, but there were people also leaving their needles there, because that was like during like the heroin epidemic. And so we couldn't go play in our playground for like a good amount of time because they were finding needles like pretty much every Monday.
Wow. So all of that was just sort of normal life around you growing up.
Extremely. Helicopters, like so-and-so there was a shooting here. Somebody died because we used to live behind, there was a field that Don Bosco owned, and that was our backyard. So that field was actually used for the helicopters that would have to fly in to treat like a lot of the like car accident victims, because we're by the 60 freeway, or shooting victims at that time. There was just a lot of crime. I think it's changed. I think it's not as bad, but we still have it. But back then in the 90s, it was intense.
Wow.
I remember we had a previous guest who, I remember her reference to the gunshots. She would always hear gunshots, but then when she moved, I think she also moved out to Avocado Heights, if I'm not mistaken, and there were no gunshots.
Oh yeah, I think, was that Gentle Femme? Oh, Ryan.
It was Ryan. Yes, it was Ryan. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So this is just normal life for you.
Yeah, growing up, it was pretty wild. I mean, everybody we knew on that street was getting high, and early mornings, afternoons, just trying to, I guess, as we would call it, get better, get their money, hustle, do whatever they had to do so that they can, stay well.
Were you able to resist that?
No, I fell into it like right after high school. I had like a period where I was just super stuck like on that street and in that little community. And I just like gravitated towards like, I feel like other kids that grew up like me, that, that grew up seeing it and grew up around it and kind of came from a little bit of dysfunctional homes, and gravitated towards each other, and it became kind of normal to me for like a good 4 or 5 years.
Did
you
just see no hope, nothing to look forward to?
Yeah, I think that I couldn't see. I mean, I had a few cousins that had gone off and gone to college. Cameron was one of them. I had my other cousin, Stephanie, the one that we still help her aunt with her her mom with her brother. They both went to college, but I just didn't have like any idea of how I could do that. I just didn't see it as a possibility for me. I just kind of thought like this, you know, I also had a kid pretty young. I had him as soon as I turned 19, right out of high school. So I kind of took it as like, well, I'm just going to stay here and work and do what I can do, but I'm going to stay in this area. And I don't know, I just guess I had no hope. Like there was no solid goal. Like I knew I wanted something better, and I knew that I needed probably to get off of that street because it was like everybody was just doing the same thing. And I think my house became so dysfunctional because by that time, you know, it was me and my brothers. We were pretty close in age. I think my little brother was like the youngest one, and he was a pretty good kid, you know, football player. But my middle brother had already gotten into, you know, drugs and alcohol since like he was like 9 or 10. He had started drinking and partying with the older people in the neighborhood, and like he was, you know, getting into trouble. So it felt like kind of like normal, you know, like this is what I'm supposed to do. Like he's doing it, other people in my family are doing it. And
how do your parents react?
Well, I think that, you know, I think it was very normal for them too. I think, you know, culturally, I think, you know, my mom, I think grew up maybe like my grandfather was a drinker, and my dad as well. Like I think he dabbled when we were younger, and, you know, even into our teenage years, I think he got a little bit caught up. So it became very normal in our household. It became very much like my dad was just doing what he had to do to not think about it, or not, you know, he was doing his thing in his little workshop in the back, and my mom was just going to work and trying to keep everything steady. And I feel like we all kind of fell victim to that like area, you know, because you get the whole other stuff that comes along with it, the genetics and, you know, the predisposition, and when it's right there in front of you, it's kind of like, you know, you're either
what are the
stay
genetics
away.
and predisposition?
So I'm not sure, like I 100% remember the exact percentage, but I want to say it's like 60 or 70% of adult children or children of adults with substance abuse issues also become addicted. They have that like predisposition gene in them. It's like been scientifically shown. Like, and my numbers could be off because this is what I studied in undergrad, and so it could be it could have been updated, but it was pretty high, you know.
So what do you do with your child when you're in that situation?
Like with
how do you raise you said you had a son or a daughter at 19?
So my oldest son is 20 now, and I think it was really because he grew up a little bit in that as well. We didn't move out till I was 22, till he was about 4. And even after that, you know, we would still go see, you know, uncles, grandma, grandpa. So he's always been around it. And I think it was very scary because not only was I raising him, but I was also in school. I had started my education journey at East LA College. And I was going to Homeboy Industries to get services, and, you know, kind of going to 12-step meetings and church and whatever I could do to find the answer to get better. That's where I was at. And so he was there with me for a lot of that, but then he was also like, you know, around the craziness still. And I think it came with a lot of fear. I think I parented out of a lot of fear. I just didn't want him to go through that. But I did the opposite of what my parents did, and I was very open with him about everybody's struggles. And I still am. And I was very, like, you know, I would explain to him, like I explained to you, like the predisposition, the genetics, how science worked, and, you know, and then if he couldn't kind of understand that, I would take a different route, and I would explain to him like how we learned about in church, you know, how like it's kind of like generational stuff that kind of follows you. So he had like that awareness, I feel like. But there was like a period in his life from like, I would say 14 to 18 where he was falling into, like, not as intense, but he was kind of questioning stuff and falling into it too. He dropped out of high school. It was COVID. And so he struggled too. And I just think being honest with him, and for me, I thought I had to be a little tough. I was a single mom, and I didn't really have like the support. It was just me trying to make those like changes. So I was a little strict with him, maybe too strict. So I think that's might have led to his like little rebellion stage.
Where is he now? What is he doing?
He's doing great. So he ended up kind of having his moment where he was struggling, and he ultimately also went to Homeboy Industries to finish high school. They have an awesome youth program there. And so while he was finishing high school there, he started going to their youth art center and their youth center, and he took up surfing. And he got really into this nonprofit from LA, started taking him surfing every weekend, and he graduated, and he started off at ELAC, and then right now he's on a break. He actually got a job at the UFC gym in Rosemead. So a family friend got him in as a janitor, and he like fell in love with jiu-jitsu. So right now he's like super into jiu-jitsu, super into health, just like overall well-being, wellness,
Now, what makes you different? What drove you to do something more than you were surrounded by?
I think part of it was being a young mom, but I think a lot of it too was like it seemed like everywhere I would go, I would meet these amazing people. Like, for example, I was working at Caro's, and I was like at my lowest. Like, I was, go in and out of jail, always in trouble, couldn't get away from like just anything, it seemed like, but I was trying. I wanted to work. I knew I had to work to provide for my son. And I met a lady there who was she was originally from El Sereno, but had roots in Rosemead. She kind of just took me under her wing and started telling me like, hey, you can go here. You don't have to stay in this area. You can go here and take these classes. And she did a lot of work at the time. She was, I think, now she's like, she has her own curriculum. She runs a program in the Women's County Jail. She's like, but back then she was waitressing and in school, and she was also a mom, and she kind of just took me under her wing. And it seemed like everywhere I would go, I would meet these people. Even if I was at the craziest places, I would meet these people that just saw something in me, like, and would tell me like, hey, Audrey, you can go to school, you can do this, you can do that, and kind of push me to do the right thing. And so finally I felt like I kept hearing it from so many people that I actually started believing it. And I was like, wow, like maybe this isn't my life. Like maybe I'm not going to be stuck like on this street for the rest of my life. And maybe I can do something different. And once I got to East LA College and to Homeboys, I think that I met even more people, and I had people showing me like the way, like how to navigate the like education system. And it just sparked something in me. Like I never wanted to stop learning. And I think that that's kind of what's made me pursue everything, was just like that passion to like learn, like how can I be better so that I can help other people be better.
Audrey, what was your drug of choice?
So everything. During my generation, it was like mostly like methamphetamine was around the San Gabriel Valley. And so that was what was there. So that's what we did. And then it also like fluctuated to like, like opiate pills. I think a lot of us had parents with like that fell into like the heroin epidemic. So I think a lot of us wanted to stay away from that. But the pills, the opiate pills were very similar. And so that's pretty much what I kind of did back and forth.
And so for people who don't know what that's like, I mean, I would understand people on meth are up for days at a time, a lot of anxiety.
Yeah, a lot of anxiety. It was crazy. Like at that time in that little area of South San Gabriel, you could go like at 3 or 4 in the morning and it was like busy. Like the 7-Eleven, like there was traffic because everybody was on it. And it was like, that's when things were happening. We're like at 3, 4 in the morning, and almost every street had a house where you could go hang out. And it was crazy,
If presented with that right now, what is it that would stop you from taking the drug?
I don't know. I think like I never really enjoyed, like that wasn't my thing. I didn't enjoy the way it made me feel. I think I was just trying to escape from something, and it was there. So I think I have that going for me, because I didn't like the way it made me feel.
Oh, so if you had enjoyed it,
yeah, for sure,
maybe it would be a different outcome.
I think I maybe wouldn't have been able to stop as easy as I did. Because it was like from one day to the next, like I just was like, I'm out of here. I have to get out of here. And I went to like a woman's home and stayed there for 4 or 5 months. And then like upon my release, like that was the first time I had ever been out of the San Gabriel Valley, and the home was just in Highland Park, but it was so far to me because I was stuck in that little bubble for so long. And upon leaving there, I got into another program where I was able to take my son, and it was borderline Montebello, East LA. And I stayed there for another 2 years. And that's when I like started working and started going to Homeboy Industries and just, getting into the whole ELAC thing.
You've mentioned Homeboy Industries a few times. Do you know Father Boyle?
I do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And is he always there?
He's not always there, but he's there a lot.
Yeah. So it's a place where you go, anybody can go who's experiencing problems?
Mm-hmm.
Anybody could go?
Anybody can
you
go.
Walk in?
Mm-hmm.
And what do you do once you get there?
For me, I started off slow. I started doing like the parenting classes and anger management classes because I knew like I kind of struggled with those things and I wanted to be the best mom I could for my son. So I started off there, and then eventually a couple years of just going in and out for services and kind of getting all the certificates, they offered me a job in the cafe. And I had already had experience because I had worked as a barista at Starbucks. So I was able to go in and kind of like run the front end of their cafe. And I utilized that to that's where I was already working part-time in treatment. So I was already working with women during that time. I started off really young. At 23, I was already working in the substance abuse field. And so when I got that job at Homeboy Industries, it was kind of like no other program that I had worked at. And it was just, I like fell in love with their mission. I fell in love with what they were doing. And that's kind of what sparked the passion for me to like continue on beyond ELAC and get my bachelor's. And, I was surrounded by a lot of like social workers and therapists. So I was like, I'm not going to stop here. I don't want to just stop at a substance abuse counselor and work in like women's homes or treatment centers. I want to do something else too. I want to look at the whole picture, the gang dynamic, the violence dynamic, like the PTSD that we experience from growing up in communities where this is normal. And they do everything so different than most like nonprofit organizations. They're so invested, they care about each individual that walks through that door that's in pain essentially. And so during that time, like I met my husband, he was working there. That's kind of where I was like, I see like how this program is so beneficial, but it's in LA and not everybody has that transportation and not everybody has like the San Gabriel Valley is completely different from South Central, from Boyle Heights. We're different. And I really, really saw the need at that point where it was like, I would love to start something like this. Obviously not as big, but something where I grew up. Like, I don't want to look at South San Gabriel and think, God, there's no services. There was nothing there. We lacked resources, which is true. But I didn't want to keep looking at it like that. I wanted to kind of like go back in and empower that community. And so we got a group of people that were like super motivated, who grew up very similar to me, had the same experiences from different areas. And we were all on like this mission to start this nonprofit organization. So back then I didn't have as many kids as I do now. I have 5. Back then I just had my son. And so it was really easy to go and do all the paperwork. And we had our art, like our small art gallery office. And it was, seeing like all the people that I grew up with that were struggling still, that, some of them were just out of prison themselves, but they had like this same passion within them to help the youth so that they wouldn't have to go down that road. So we were super passionate about this. And then for me, tragedy hit in 2015. I lost my middle brother. And that took me like to a whole nother, like, I mean, I was literally like, I was working on my bachelor's at the time. And I was literally like in a class, I forgot, it was a psychology class, but it was, I want to say like family dynamics, like a family dynamics class. And we were making a genealogram, like a family tree to like kind of explore our family's, stuff. And I literally was working on it one day, and the next day my brother was gone. He passed away from suicide, and it hit Rosemead, it hit the community hard. I mean, he was like, somebody that was really well known in the community. He was a skateboarder. He was really like active in that, in that scene. He kind of was like, everybody knew him. So it kind of like devastated the community. And what I saw after that, like kind of just like blew my mind, because it was like everybody, I mean, that day that it happened, there was like a group of like, I want to say like 50 people in front of our house, just like with handmade like signs and like just like supporting our family. And it just kept trickling in afterwards, like up to a whole year after he passed away. It was like the community just surrounded us. I mean, from fundraisers. We had, I don't know if you guys remember, there was like a little bar and grill called Spikes on Garvey. And it was like the community bar. They used to have bands play there, and they opened up their doors to us and were like, you can have a fundraiser here, you can use it. And just the whole community really, really came together. And I think that that's what totally just changed my perception of the San Gabriel Valley, because I was looking at it like, I'm going to be stuck there forever. I'm going to be stuck in South San Gabriel forever. I need to get out. I need to get out to be able to succeed. But when I saw that, I realized, like, man, I had the wrong thought process all along. Like, it's all about community. Like, we're gonna go through hard things, we're gonna have tragedy, like every community has its struggles, but the way the community and that like city came together, it was unlike anything I've ever seen, you know. And it really kept my parents going and his close friends going, and like us, the siblings, you know, the 2 siblings, because it was like a really, really hard time for us. So
was he an older brother or younger?
So I'm the oldest. He was 2 years younger than me. Yeah. And then I have another brother that's about 4 or 5 years younger than me. So he was right in the middle.
Well, it sounds like your story is, you know, one, just sort of being born into this area or this lifestyle is around you and maybe not even being so much aware of it, and then getting involved in the drugs, and then having a son, and then trying to climb out of there. What message do you have for a mom or a single mom who may have been in that, or who may be in that situation now and feel like it's too difficult or is struggling, or is at a point where, you know, where you were at that point? What do you have to say to that mom?
I would say, like, just never underestimate like your worth and what you're worthy of or what you're capable of. 'Cause we as mothers, we're capable of anything when it comes to bettering, you know, our kids' situation. We're capable of anything. And there is resources out there, even when it seems like there's not, and like all hope is gone. Like, you know, like there are resources out there to help you build that better life, you know, and you can get out of it. You can get out of that, you know what I mean? Like, you can get out of it. I know that for a lot of us, it seems like it's not in the cards. You know, our parents didn't set us up for that. Our community didn't set us up for that. There's too much in front of us, but it's like literally all you have to do is keep going. And it's not going to happen overnight, because I started this journey when I was 23. I'm about to be 40, and I'm barely going to finish my master's degree. And there's like times all the time where I'm like, I'm so broke. Like, even now being married, I'm like, it is so hard. I'm so broke, but I'm like, but the end goal is that I'm going to get my degree. And once you get that to where you're going, whether it's a degree, whether it's like your own business, whether it's, you know, a trade, has to be that end goal that you keep like pursuing, you know, no matter how long it takes, because it's like a state of mind, you know, like you can be in a rut today, but if you have goals, eventually you're going to get out of that. But if you don't make that step, or if you don't take those steps like every day, then you're kind of just going to stay there, and years will pass you by, and you're going to be working and struggling. You know, I used to work 3 jobs sometimes just to like make ends meet, and it did feel hopeless, you know. And but as long as you have that goal, like that end goal, just keep striving towards it.
How is your self-image?
I think it's like grown tremendously. I think before I didn't think I was like, you know, like I kind of like had a lot of self-doubt. Like I knew what I wanted, but I still had like almost like an imposter syndrome, which I still have a little bit, you know. I'm like, how do I, you know, like for example, I was interning last year in Claremont, and Claremont's different than South San Gabriel, and I felt that hit me, and I was like, I don't belong here. I can't talk to these parents. They're doctors and lawyers, and they are trusting me with their kid to do social work with their kid, and I can't, I don't belong here. And I just kept saying it, and it was crazy because I ended up running into one of the, she's like one of the main directors for Homeboy Industries. Her child goes to that school, and she saw me, and I think she saw my face, and she was like, "Are you okay?" And I kind of told her like, I just feel like I don't belong here. And she was like, "Oh no, you do. You belong here. Like you need to like step out, and you need to stop all that. Like you've worked hard. Like you have something that not everybody has, you know, like you belong here." And just what she said, like set me on the right path. You know, it's always going to come up. You're always going to like have those moments where you're like, oh my God, like that was me. And it's always going to kind of affect like what you do now. But I feel like as long as you check it and keep it in balance, like you're going to be okay, you know?
Yeah, definitely. In one of the worst times of my life, I asked my friend, Danny, why did these things happen? And he says, Russell, I think these things happen so that we are equipped to help people who are experiencing the same thing later on, because no one can reach them like you can. I was like, thanks. That's not what I wanted to hear right now. But I could see that now. So I imagine that you're helping a lot of people that maybe nobody else can help or reach because of what you've gone through yourself. So Audrie, we ask each guest to bring an item of significance with them. What did you bring with you today? So
today I brought some handmade turquoise jewelry.
Can you describe it for the audience who can't see it?
So it's silver and it has like a little piece of turquoise in the middle. It's a bracelet. And then I also have like some rings that are also turquoise. So my grandfather actually made these, and that was like his hobby. Like in his latter years, he would make he was a silversmith, so he would make turquoise jewelry, and he would park his truck in front of beaches and sell it. Mm-hmm. And so I kept these, and so each of my daughters has had like an opportunity to use them and wear them. And they mean a lot to me because it represents kind of almost like a time that's not here anymore, you know.
This was Indian Tony?
Yeah. Yeah. That's what the neighborhood knew him as. And he used to sit out there in front of beaches with this tall can. And he was, you know, I think he would wear, we had a family friend that was a sheriff. And so he would give my grandfather like a volunteer badge or like a volunteer jacket. And so he would wear that to get away with being able to have his beer in front of beaches, and he would sell this jewelry, and so that means a lot to me. It represents, like I said, like just growing up in this community, and like, you know, a time that doesn't exist anymore.
Oh, thank you for bringing that in. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that probably even remember him.
I would think so. Like when he passed away, like we had random people like calling that got like his number from the market, from Beaches Market, and trying to get in touch with us.
Wow. Well, Audrie, I want to get into some of the work that you have been doing and that you're doing now, but let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
At Warmouth Law, they believe that just because you speak a foreign language, come from a different culture, or simply don't know how to navigate the legal system, that should not prevent you from compensation from injury or receiving benefits. Their multicultural staff have been helping SGVers like you for over 38 years. Visit law888.com or call them at 626-784-7017 and tell them you heard about them on this podcast.
All right, we're back with Audrie. Audrie, during the break, we were talking about Carol's, and you know, Carol's is where I would go Friday night, Saturday night. It was open late.
To that one? Right off the freeway, the 60?
It's right next, like, going towards the Montebello Mall, right?
Yeah.
Is that the one?
Remember, it was Carol's, and then next door it was Charlie Brown's.
That's right, yes.
Charlie Brown's.
Yeah.
And now that's an all-you-can-eat Chinese, I think.
Buffet.
Yeah, buffet.
Well, we would, you know, if you could park right in the front, and if you sat on the front side, you can see your car out there, like, you know, or if you sat in the back, and then there was a backpack, right?
Right in front of the Motel 6.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. We would go there. I think it was open late, right? Or maybe 24 hours?
At one point, it was open 24 hours. And then I think they started, like, you know, as I think business went down, they started playing with the hours. But at one point in time, it was 24 hours or really late.
That was the spot to go to, you know, when it was late. Like, you could drive there 1 o'clock in the morning and you just see all these cars parked outside.
Yeah. And what would you eat?
I think, you know, I was poor and in high school, so we probably share something. I think it would always come with like a salad, right? So it would come with the salad, whatever entree we got. Probably it was like a burger or something. But yeah, a lot of memories there.
Yeah.
A lot of memories there.
And she might have served you.
Well, I mean, we're probably the same age now, so yeah, I was going there. Oh, actually, did you work there? No, I was probably going there like in 94 or 95.
Oh yeah, we would like walk over there at that age and get like the kids' meals and like, you know.
I have a story there from my brother, one of my brothers, Kevin, who I'm probably not mentioned in the show. He was even at that time a very large person, very, very large, muscular. And we were sitting in one of those booths where you can see right outside the front.
Yeah, different.
And there was all these guys, and they were probably of college age. They were of college age because they were in a fraternity. And there was this guy just mouthing off to all of them. And I was like, wow, that guy's pretty brave or stupid, right? Mm-hmm. And he comes in and he's walking, and I was like, oh, that's my brother. Oh. And then he comes down and he sits next to me, and it's pretty late at night, and he's still like flipping these guys off from outside. That's how large he was. He's just extremely large. And they had gotten into something with like at a club or whatever, and
they didn't mess with him.
No. I'll show you a picture afterwards. He's still very scary. He's still very scary looking.
Were they like college boys, like
they were
age, or were they from Don Bosco High School?
No. They were in college.
Oh, wow.
They were in college. I think they were upset with him because he had gotten into a fight with one of their fraternity members at a club or something, and so they recognized him. But he was like kind of a jerk.
Well,
not kind of a jerk, but yeah. So.
Back then too, it was like the clubbing days were
yeah,
because you had like Quiet Cannon and Camachos and all those clubs along the 60 freeway.
Well, Audrey, before we get back to your story, when we come back from the break, we like to ask a question from this deck of cards called Icebreakers. So they're supposed to be lighthearted, even though some of them are not. You can choose to answer it or not. It's completely up to you. So here's the question for today. It is, what is your dream job if money didn't matter?
That's hard. I always say, like, I would do what I'm doing now. I would work probably with the unhoused population, but I would just want to cook. Like, I would just want to cook for everybody.
I see. Scott is still contemplating. So I would make bonsai tree and do Japanese woodworking. Yeah. Because it's something I can do with my hands. I can see it forming in front of me. It's something beautiful. I can keep it. I can look at it, or I can give it away. I can see it grow. And its value over time, in my mind, increases. So, yeah.
Wow. And I have a completely blank mind. I can't even think. I don't even know. Huh.
Well, to our audience, to our listening audience and those viewing on YouTube, what is your dream job? What would you do if money didn't matter? Leave us a comment. Let us know, and we'll feature that comment in a future show. So, Audrey, back to you. And you said before the show that you do community outreach, you work with the unhoused, and you're also a substance abuse counselor, and that's the capacity that you're working in now on your way to becoming a social worker. Is that right?
Yes.
And what is that like? Where are you doing this sort of work?
So right now I'm with an organization in Pasadena. Actually, it's Union Station Homeless Services, and I've been with them for like about 6 or 7 years. I actually came over. I was working at a medicated treatment center, so like a methadone clinic in El Monte, and it was like my first job back after I lost my brother, like working in treatment. And I had an amazing manager there at that clinic who really like wanted to help, and we saw the population of people of our unhoused like neighbors changing. Like it went from just being like, like the usual to like really expanding. And then we had a lot of like overlap. So like a lot of our clients that were coming in to get their methadone every day that were never homeless before were becoming, unhoused and didn't have anywhere to go because things were changing. And so he like had this amazing idea to start doing outreach. And it was a little controversial because I think methadone in its own is a little controversial. Not everybody agrees with it. But he kind of put me ahead of that project. And in that process, I met somebody from Union Station. So they kind of recruited me. And I went over to Union Station and I started doing outreach or housing navigation. And they were just a small nonprofit when I went on board with them. But as times changed, they ended up getting like a whole bunch of grants, and they really expanded. Like they used to just be predominantly like Pasadena and very few like other locations in the San Gabriel Valley, but now they're like, I think the leading organization serving the homeless population in the San Gabriel Valley. And so it's I went from doing outreach, and then at the time I had my son, the oldest one, and my daughter, and then I ended up having, I think maybe like 2 or 3 months into working outreach. And this was like outreach. Like we were going to the riverbeds. We were going, like our location was Monrovia, Arcadia, which was pretty easy, and San Gabriel. And then when they noticed that we didn't have a lot of work in those areas, they started sending us to the riverbed, like that 605 area along the 605. And so then I had my other son around that time, and he's going to be 5. So after I had him, my husband was like, I don't think it's a good idea that you go back to outreach. It's a lot, and it was physically, I was like kind of like jumping fences and like probably doing stuff that I didn't even have to do, but I really wanted to get down there and reach everybody. And my team was kind of like the same. So I decided not to go back to outreach, and I decided then that I was going to apply for a master's program at Azusa Pacific University. So I applied for that program, and then I actually started working in their shelters instead, just doing like entry level, like it's called a resident advisor. So I'm just there kind of helping. And I always say, like, I'm on call, and I always say, I'm just going to do this, like, because it gives me a break from the kids and being home, and takes my mind off of school, and I can do it while I'm doing, but it never ends up like that. I always end up going from like once a month, twice a month, and then I have like 4 days and I'm there. And there's just a high need right now, especially with like all the project room keys that opened up during COVID, like the motels that they turned into like shelters. There's like a really high turnaround when it comes to people that want to work in them. And so it's gone from like, it usually goes from like 1 day a week to like 4, and it's intense, but I love it. Right now I'm actually working with the families, and it's totally different than anything I've been doing, because I've always worked with single adults. But the family, I'm working at Union Station's Family Center, and it's interesting. It's really, really different because you have like parents with kids, babies. It's just like a huge population, and you never know what family dynamic you're gonna get. So I've heard, I haven't seen it, but I've heard sometimes we're even getting like grandparents, like 3 generations, like grandparents, the parents, and the child. So
wow. Well, it's definitely important work that you're doing, and I imagine it's tough, but also very rewarding at the same time. So thank you for doing that with this community. Union Station, is there something called Mission something in Pasadena? Is that the same thing?
I think, is it the Union Rescue Mission? That one's in LA.
Sure. Oh, no, this is in Pasadena. So maybe there's only one. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. There's like other organizations in Pasadena, but I think Union Station Homeless Services, I want to say that they're maybe like the biggest.
Where is it located?
So they have a few locations. There's one on Raymond.
Okay, that's the one I'm talking about, yeah.
Yeah, that one's
right near Central Park, right?
Right,
yeah.
by Central Park.
Yeah.
I see. Okay.
I think from my understanding, I think like the board originally when it started came from like All Saints Church in Pasadena, and they created this program like to serve Pasadena, and then just with everything that's happened and like the how everything's changing, it's really like grown, and so now they pretty much service all over. And that shelter, it used to just be that the clients that were brought in, or the residents that were brought in, were just from the Pasadena area. Like we had to take Pasadena, like people that were from Pasadena first. But now it's like opened up to all of San Gabriel Valley, and it's just changed. Before it was like a very like, this is what you were gonna get, and now it's like it's so diverse. Like we're getting a lot of like overlap. Like I said, we're getting a lot of people that are getting out of prison, or that don't really have like as high of the mental health need, but like they have the substance abuse, or they have just like the like the PTSD, or the stuff that they can still kind of like, you wouldn't be able to tell that they're struggling, and so the population has changed. And I think before it was like where I think people could still kind of like afford an apartment like on Social Security or on SSI, and now they can't. And so people could kind of manage like some of their substance abuse stuff and their stuff while still kind of being able to afford an apartment, but that doesn't happen anymore. So now we're getting a lot of like diverse populations coming into the shelters.
Yeah, I can imagine that. Well, and Section 8 is not as easy to get as people think.
No.
It's a long process and a difficult process.
And even when they get the vouchers, like landlords don't want to take the vouchers. And like right now, most of the attention has been on the adult population because that's been the emergency, right? Like that's what we're seeing on the streets. That's what's bothering people. That's where people are like, hey, we have to do something. We have to get everybody off the streets because it's becoming really, really bad. So most of the focus and the funding is kind of surrounding like single adults. And so I think just last year, a lot of people got housing vouchers from Section 8, but nobody wanted to take them. So those vouchers expired. And so it kind of left us at a place where it's like, okay, so now what? And so now they've come up with the new idea of like, you know, utilizing more like permanent supportive housing, or even like turning the project room keys into project home keys, so that eventually if they can't get housed, you know, they can stay there and kind of turn those into like more of like an apartment rather than a room, and they can stay there. And I mean, I think the overall idea is to have one in each like city, so that they would be able to take care of their own population. I think that's the idea, but I think there's so much like politics and thought that has to go into that, and it gets really like
Sure.
complicated.
Sure. Yeah. It's not an easy thing to fix,
No.
not by a long shot.
No.
Well, Audrie, we're going to have to move on the conversation onto the final segment of the show, where we get to talk about something a little bit more lighthearted and find out a little bit about what you like in the San Gabriel Valley.
Yeah, so as Russell said, it's a little more lighthearted, but what would be three places that are great memories or great locations, great food?
Okay, so I think there are three very unique places. I'm not, because I could talk all day about food. There's so much good food in the San Gabriel Valley. But I did want to talk about maybe one location that I don't think a lot of people know about, and it's actually was in like my backyard growing up, and it's called St. Joseph's Retreat Center. And I don't know, like I don't even know what they utilize it for these days. Back then there was a lot of retreats going on, and it is part of like the Catholic Church. I think they are kind of correlated with St. Anthony's right here on San Gabriel. I think that's like the main church, and then they're like a retreat center, but they do have a chapel there. But within that like campus, I mean, it's a beautiful campus. If you go up there and drive up that hill, it's like right off of Arroyo Drive, and it's just a little hill that goes up, and it's on the back side of Don Bosco High School. And there's like this little like prayer chapel, and it's made of like stone, and it's called a temple. Like we used to call it when we were little the temple, because that's where we used to like jump the wall and go hang out there and climb it and get in trouble with all the fathers there. But just that whole like space is just it's beautiful. Like they have a very small chapel there. Most recently I've been to like a couple funerals there. We've lost some loved ones that were really important to the community, and they've really opened their doors and like kind of like embrace the community in that way. And then they have like a little rec center. So I'm not sure what they use it for, like besides like funerals or retreats. When we were little, I want to say that there was a lot of novices that lived there. So like a lot of like men studying to be priests, like, and the brothers, like there was some kind of like housing there. But I don't know. I think maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I heard that they were renting it out, like for camps, like for kids. I don't know if they're still doing that because I'm not there as much, but it's really it's beautiful. Like just the temple and being there, there's like a grassy area, and it kind of forget like you're like in the middle of everything, because it's really peaceful and serene.
Yeah, that reminds me, when I was growing up, my parents would sometimes go to a retreat, or a weekend retreat, and that was common. That was something that was done back then, and yeah, I wonder if it's used much for that anymore. But
I don't know.
It was something that always sounded like peaceful. And
yeah, I'm like a big retreat person. I'm not a practicing Catholic, but I am, more like Christian, Protestant. And so I do a lot of like women's retreats. And I think maybe like about 5 years ago, one of the the pastors that I know that works in the community had actually rented out that retreat center. So I thought it was really cool, because I thought, like, you know, they open it up. It doesn't matter. They open it up to the community. Even as kids, they would take us to camp. And, you know, I mean, we would get in trouble for running around back there, but not too much in trouble. And I think they were more just trying to keep us in line.
Oh, yeah.
At that
Nice
time.
little memory, huh?
Yeah.
What would be a second thing?
The other one is the Whittier Narrows Nature Center. And it's right off of, like, if you go all the way down San Gabriel Boulevard, I think it turns into Durfee, I want to say. And you pass Lake, and it's right across the street from the McDonald's. And I think there's like a motel on Durfee and Peck. It's a museum. It's a very small museum, but it's amazing in there. Like, my kids love to go there. It's free to the public. They have like little events for kids sometimes. And the lady that works there, I haven't seen her the last 2 times that I've gone, but she's usually there. She's like super knowledgeable about that area. And there's actually like a butterfly like space where, you know, you could stand in there and the butterflies are supposed to surround you. And there's a hike. And we've been going there since we were little. There used to be a waterfall. It's kind of like the backside of like Whittier Narrows and like the river, but it's really, really nice. And I don't go too often, but when I do, it's always empty. And I think, like, man, why don't more people come and just really enjoy this? Because they've really put a lot of effort into it. I think they recently like put a whole bunch of money into it and planted a whole bunch of new plants down there.
But is that part of that whole big park on Rosemead? Is that Whittier Narrows? What is that area called? Like Rosemead in the 60?
Lake or Whittier Narrows Picnic Center.
Okay.
It's kind of, but this is
it's
like
near that?
It's near that. It's like if you keep driving like
farther
towards,
east?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's really, really, it's just
along
really
Garvey, or no, you said
San Gabriel Boulevard.
Uh-huh.
And then you pass Rosemead Boulevard, you pass Lake, you pass Whittier Narrows, and then it's like on your right before you hit Peck Road.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here it is. Whittier Narrows Nature, or no, sorry. What did you call it again?
Whittier's Narrow Nature Center.
Nature Center.
Yes.
It's a big area.
Yes.
And it's unusual. Like, it's not squared in any way. All the streets sort of wind around. So.
Yeah. I think it's only in the San Gabriel. I don't know. Maybe I'm just partial, but from what I've seen, like, it's only in the San Gabriel Valley where you could be from like Garvey, that's like bustling, and there's businesses and you can eat, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
And then like in 10 minutes you're like in ranches and there's horses and, you know, like it's that's the San Gabriel Valley.
Diversity.
Yeah.
Right. All right. What about a third place?
And so the third place is like the basis of this shirt is up, and I'm sure maybe you're a little bit more familiar, but over there, like in do you know where Hillcrest Elementary is at? Mm-hmm. So on the back of Hillcrest, there's this long, like, strain of steps, and like everybody that grew up in that area calls it the 88 steps. I don't know if there's 88. I've tried to count them before, but I always lose track. But I think back in the day, like, you either went to Potrero Heights in South San Gabriel or you went to Hillcrest, depending on where you lived. And so that community went to Hillcrest, but there was actually like this stairway that led up for the kids that lived in South San Gabriel but were going to school in Monterey Park. So that's what those stairs were for. But on the weekends and in the summer, obviously they weren't using it for that, so everybody used to kind of just go hang out there. And when you go up those steps and you sit there, you can see all of the San Gabriel Valley. I'm not going to encourage it because obviously it's closed off for a reason, but
it's closed off.
Yeah, it's closed off. There might still be like a way, you know, to get into the school and see, like, you know, during the day. But I think during the night there was probably, I'm sure, like some liability issues because they're just like a narrow stairway. But I think back then it brought a lot of people together and a lot of people would hang out there. And it was just really a neat place. It's right up from the Garvey Ranch Park, and you could just really see all of the San Gabriel Valley. And
it's a shame that it's
not
know. Open.
I know. And it's really cool, like this mutual friend, because my daughter cheerleads for the Rosemead Rebels. It's like the local football and cheer team that we have in Rosemead. So one of the coaches one of the cheer coaches, her husband actually like made his whole clothing brand like representing this space, and it's called 88 Steps. And it's really, you know, we've had a couple other like passings in the community, and it's like they've gotten involved and like donated things, and like, you know, it's just like, it's really cool. And I often reflect back to that place, because I'm like, wow, it's another place in the area that brought a lot of people together.
Yeah.
I think I see it on the map, the 88 Steps.
Really?
Is it in the corner of a field?
Yeah, and Hillcrest is filled.
Yeah. And it's in the far back corner. It goes down, and there's like sort of, okay, I think I found it. I've never heard of that before. Okay, awesome. Well, those were 3 really unique SGV3s.
I was trying to make it unique. Like
Thank you for sharing that. Audrie, thank you for coming on the show and for sharing your story and your journey with us and with our audience. If people want to get in touch with you or want to maybe even take advantage of some of the services that you work with, what's the best way to do that?
Through Instagram. I'm actually just started a new Instagram for the nonprofit that we're in the process of getting all the paperwork together for. So it's The Art of Change SGV. The
Art of Change SGV. Awesome. Well, thank you again for coming on.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Well, there you go. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Audrie. And if you're from the San Gabriel Valley, probably some of those places are familiar with you. It's definitely familiar to me, some of the places mentioned, and even some of the experiences that she had shared with us. So if those things are familiar to you, if you want to drop us a line in the comment section, please do so. And if you like this type of content, don't forget to subscribe. You can find the full back catalog of our episodes on our website, mysgv.net. And until next week, we'll see you then.
Thank you for joining us on the My SGV podcast. Check out more of our content on our website, mysgv.net. This show was produced by Russell Mono and edited by Victoria Allers of Kind Monster Productions. If you'd like to join us next week as we capture and share more stories from our diverse community, feel welcome.
Nice mother. No, kind mother.